Hey there, welcome back to Melly Loves Death Metal, and I'm doing a little bit of a newer type of series on the channel this time around. Normally I would show some of these things off in my collection update, which I still probably will do, because not everybody's going to see this video, but what I've been wanting to do, and what I will talk about a little bit more in a future episode that's going to be coming out soon, is to do a little bit more of a deep dive of some of my all-time favorite death metal albums. A lot of people have asked me to do like a video of what are your favorite death metal albums of all time, and I'll do that. It'll get there. I'm slowly starting to get them on physical formats because a lot of them are a little bit harder to find. Haven't had a repressing in a while, and I just think it'd be more fun to do a video where I actually have physical format in hand. It's also less editing for me because I don't have to pop up a picture right there and stuff like that. So I figured I would start off strong with one that I guess is pretty well known now, which I was not aware of. I, for some reason, just thought, only like the underground death metal heads really still talked about or knew about this album. I guess maybe I just was a little bit out of the loop of what is popular. But this old school death metal revival is going strong right now, and my channel obviously is very focused around a lot of that, and I show off a lot of that, but I don't typically talk about the older stuff. There's obviously other YouTubers out there that do a much better job of that, Ken's Death Metal Crypt, but I figured I'll start to kind of keep the history alive as well. Probably not as well as Ken, because I don't have nearly as much as the underground stuff as he has, but he has a lot of things that I wish I owned, and I'm still scouring, and hopefully I'll be able to get into my collection. So I'll start off the popular one that just got released. Some people probably are still waiting on their pre-orders, but yes, this is Demigod, Slumber of Sullen, guys. This is the 30th anniversary repress that was just put out on Spart Records. Like I said, some of you are probably waiting on your pre-orders. Some local distros already have them in the US, NWN, Meteor Gem, Hell's Headbangers. So far I've seen these go in and out the door super fast, but yes, you can get these pre-ordered. Even Amazon is carrying them, and I guess it's the latest they're coming is like within the next 2 weeks. So these are out there now and they're available. So here's a little bit of a background if you're not familiar with this band. They're from Finland, so it's old school Finnish death metal. Originally released in 1992 on Drowned Productions. If you're not familiar with that label, you should head over to Ken's Death Metal Crypt. He's been doing a series called Into the Crypt on Drowned Productions. He has 2 videos out right now where he goes in depth, release by release, of what they've put out way back in the day. And this is one of those popular releases that came out back then. Since then, this has been repressed a couple of times on Extreme Music, which was a long time ago, and some of those repressings were going for stupid prices, and I just held off on getting them. And then now this more recent repress of Spart Records. So Drowned Productions, 1992. They've also released a lot of other death metal gems. I'm probably going to show off 1 or 2 more in this series that I have that I consider my all-time favorite death metal records, but we'll get to that point. And in a time of Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, Morbid Angel, all of those bands in the 90s, this death metal album comes and is a little bit different in sound in relation to those albums, with a little bit of a different album cover that you typically wouldn't have seen around this time. There was more of the demonic, more of the gory side of album covers within the genre. Then there's this very psychedelic, trippy album cover that was done by Rob Smits. Now, I don't think this is the original album cover. I think this is some sort of a remaster, but from what I do know and what I was reading about this reissue is they did include a poster in here of the original artwork, which I am probably going to frame because this is one of my all-time favorite death metal album covers. It's a really big poster. So that's a nice added touch about this reissue that they did. Aside from the reissue that they added in the poster, there's also this book that is very nice, and it's basically a history of the band. It has some interviews in here and old pictures and promo flyers and all this stuff. So a nice additional bonus for this reissue. It is a gatefold right there. Some promotional pictures right there for you guys of the band. And then what I consider one of the greatest death metal logos. So I also know that there's like a long sleeve shirt of this. I'm looking on the lookout for it because I would love to have that. I have the green copy for you vinyl heads that want to know. There is a plain black copy as well. And like I said, this has been repressed several times in the past. I was looking on Discogs, and Carnage Records repressed the cassette back in the early 90s. And then Extreme Music picked it up and repressed it in the early 2000s, and then now Svart has it. So it's a gem that they're trying to make sure people have in their collection and are able to get, which I appreciate, because for me personally, for these types of records, if there's not a repress, you have to fork out a lot of money for them, and I don't always have that. So I was really excited to see this got repressed. Some of the music styles on this album, if you're not familiar, it has a little bit more of a low chug, groovier sound to it. They definitely experiment with that groove metal initial sound. You can definitely you can definitely hear in more recent death metal albums some of those influences that have come from Demigod. But it's throughout the whole record. It's not always that fast-paced death metal, being thrown at you. It definitely has more of that slower, chuggier vibe to it. It even has a little bit more of atmospheric elements into it, especially mixed and littered throughout the album. Atmospheric in that it just has a little bit more of a different sound to your Morbid Angels, DSI, Cannibal Corpse, death metal albums that were out within that era, or that time frame of the early 90s. Like I said, the album cover was different than what you were used to seeing back then, and is again one of my all-time favorite death metal album covers. But I would say, from something that I want people to understand about the album, is that it is iconic, and it definitely is one of those crucial death metal albums to have in your collection, especially if you're that old school sound chaser. If you want some of that more old school death metal in your collection, this is definitely something you should pick up if you've never heard it. Like I said, it seems like this relative has gotten popular because I've been seeing people typed about this repress, and it's being shared everywhere, and people are showing it off, and I was surprised by that because I feel like it was just kind of dead there for a while, and like people didn't really know what it was, and now it's there. So again, that old school death metal revival is back. People are into it. They're digging into the archives. They're trying to find these gems and bring them back to life, which I do not have a problem with whatsoever. These are albums that I've had since I was young, teenager, 12, 13, 14 years old, 15, 16, right when we started to get the internet time frames. I was meeting people on message boards, for underground death metal message boards and metal message boards, and we would trade burned CDs of songs that we would essentially rip off and torrent through the internet, and we would send them to each other. It didn't matter where we lived in the country. And Demigod's song Dead Soul was one of the songs on a burned CD that I'm a good friend of mine who I'm still very close with, still talk with every single day. He lives out in California. Ripped down there for me, and that was the first time I'd ever heard this band. It was probably when I was about 16 years old, and I was just, I need to have this. And I remember trying to track down the CD, and my area of where I lived was a very small town in central Illinois, right outside of Chicago. Didn't have a record store. I'd had to drive about 40 minutes to one that was close enough, and sure enough, they had this CD, and it was like $30 or something insane. And I grabbed it. I think I was broke. Hello, computer. I think I was broke for like several months after that. So that was the first time that I'd ever really heard Demigod. So thanks to my friend Andrew for exposing them to me back in the day of our internet days of being a nerd on message boards and talking to each other on AOL Instant Messenger and all those fun things. I will say another favorite part about this album is when you flip over to side 2, it does get a little bit more of a doomier sound, a slower doomy sound, with Embrace the Darkness, another one of my all-time favorite songs on this album. So it's a gem. You should add it to your collection. I am really happy that I currently have it now. Again, I should say, on vinyl, a format that I've wanted to have it on for a while now. I wasn't satisfied enough with still having a CD. In fact, I sold that original CD that I had, and then I repurchased again within the last 5 years or so. And again, I've always wanted this on vinyl. So, Demigod, Slumber of Sullen Eyes, Spart Records reissue, originally came out on Genre Productions, and like I said, Ken from Ken's Death Metal Crypt has been diving down into this record label. He released a new video on it a couple weeks ago. It's part 3, I think, of Into the Crypt. The first video is his showing the Crypt, which is incredible, seeing his music collection. The second part was the first video about Genre Productions, and then the third video is the second part of Genre Productions, which he goes into Demigod on that video. So check it out. I'll link it in the description. I love those videos. I hope Ken continues them because he is a wealth of knowledge, and he has shown some demos and EPs on his channel that I've completely forgotten about, and now I've written down and added to my want list and I'm looking for. So amazing stuff. So yeah, if you're on the lookout for this, it's there. I'll link where I know a few people who have it for sale, but I mean, if you really want to, not hold out for a US distro, you can pre-order it on Amazon, which goes to show this has gotten popular over time. So that is all that I have. Let me know what you think of this. I've got a list of about 5 or 6 more albums I'm going to record on this, but I decided I would start with one that just got a reissue that everybody's talking about and get added into the conversation. So let me know what you think about this album. Do you own it? Are you looking for it? And that's all that I have. I will see you guys in the next one.